The elevator dropped. Not literally, but the sensation in Sloan Mercer's stomach was identical as the digital display marked each descending floor with an annoying beep. Third floor, second, first, basement, basement 2, basement. Wait, there's a basement 3? She frantically pressed every button, but the elevator continued descending like it had a mind of its own. At 26, event coordinator at Brennan Industries for only 3 months, Sloan had faced impossible clients, insane deadlines, and even a literal fire at a wedding. But being swallowed alive by a corporate building in downtown Chicago, not in the job description. The elevator stopped with a jolt. The doors opened to a hallway that definitely wasn't the parking garage. Italian marble floors, crystal light fixtures, a single mahogany door at the end. What the actual... Sloan stepped out, her silver clutch pressed against her chest. It was 4 in the morning. The charity event had ended hours ago. She just wanted to go home, take off this cocktail dress that cost half her rent, and forget she'd spent the evening serving champagne to the most insufferable man in Illinois. The mahogany door opened, and there he was, Griffin Brennan, CEO, 32 years old, chiseled jaw, storm gray eyes, and the personality of a particularly irritated iceberg, wearing only gray sweatpants, no shirt. Sloan blinked, then blinked again. "You broke into my home," he said, with the same tone he'd used to comment on the weather. "I what?" "My home." Griffin crossed his arms, and Sloan forced her eyes to stay on his face. Only his face. Definitely not on the abs that looked like they'd been sculpted by an artist during a creative surge. "This is the private residential floor. How did you get access?" "I didn't get anything. I got in the elevator, pressed parking, and this possessed metal box brought me to, she gestured violently at the hallway. "Wherever this is. To my living room." He tilted his head, studying her like a scientist observing a new species of bacteria. "Have you been drinking?" "Drinking. I spent the last 6 hours smiling at 50 oil tycoons while they called me sweetheart and made jokes about my other talents. The only thing I drank was lukewarm sparkling water." A muscle twitched in Griffin's jaw. "Who made jokes?" "It doesn't matter." "Sloan, who?" There was something in his voice, low, controlled, dangerous, that made her answer automatically. "Robert Hutchins, from Hutchins Oil." "But seriously, I just want to leave." "Hutchins will get a call tomorrow." Griffin turned and entered the apartment. "Come in. I'll call security to find out what happened with the elevator." "I'm not entering my boss's apartment at 4 in the morning. "You'd rather stay in the hallway?" He looked back, one eyebrow raised. "Because the security cameras are already filming this extremely appropriate situation." Sloan cursed under her breath and walked in. The apartment was exactly what she'd expect. Minimalist, masculine, with floor-to-ceiling windows showing sleeping Chicago, black leather sofa, glass coffee table, no photos, no plants, no sign of actual human life. It was like entering a permanently unoccupied 5-star hotel suite. "Wow," she murmured. "It's almost like a human being lives here." "I have a decorator." Griffin grabbed a gray t-shirt from a chair and put it on, to Sloan's relief and disappointment. "Coffee? At 4 in the morning? Are you a psychopath?" "It's that or whiskey." "Coffee sounds great." She followed him to the kitchen, all black granite and stainless steel, and sat on a stool while he prepared an espresso in the most complicated machine she'd ever seen. "So," Sloan said, because the silence was getting too weird, "do you always receive employees in the middle of the night?" "Never." He didn't look at her, focused on adjusting the machine. "You're the first person besides me to enter here in 8 months." "Really? I value my privacy." "Or you don't have friends." Griffin paused, then surprisingly laughed, a low husky sound that made something strange happen in her stomach. "Pertinent observation, Miss Mercer." The machine released steam, and he placed a delicate cup in front of her. Sloan took a sip and almost groaned. It was the best coffee she'd ever tasted in her life. "Okay, this is unfair," she said. "How can you be so insufferable at the office and make such good coffee?" Natural talent for contradictions. He leaned against the counter, holding his own cup. "And I'm not insufferable. You made me redo today's event layout 5 times because the chairs were emotionally incorrect. They were too aggressive for a charity event. Chairs don't have emotions. Everything has emotion in design, Sloan." It was the first time he'd used her first name outside the office. It sounded different in his voice, softer, almost intimate. She took another sip of coffee to distract herself. So, security? She reminded him. Griffin picked up his phone and frowned. I have 23 missed calls from my mother. At 4 in the morning? She doesn't sleep. He dialed, put it on speaker. They answered on the first ring. Griffin Alexander Brennan. The female voice exploded from the device like thunder. Can you explain to me why I'm seeing your face on every single news site? Sloan and Griffin exchanged confused looks. Mom, what are you? Don't mom me right now. CEO caught in secret meeting with employee. Corporate scandal. Possible workplace harassment. Do you have any idea what this does to the merger? The blood drained from Griffin's face. He opened the laptop that was on the counter, typed furiously. The screen lit up showing the Chicago Tribune website. There, in the main headline, with a high-resolution photo taken from the elevator security cameras, Sloan and Griffin, she wearing the party dress, he shirtless, standing inches from each other. Chicago tycoon caught in late-night visit with subordinate inappropriate relationship or secret romance. You've got to be kidding me, Sloan whispered, the cup almost slipping from her fingers. Kidding is right, his mother shouted through the phone. The merger with Hartman Corp happens in 6 days, Griffin. 6. And now they're talking about reconsidering because they don't want to associate with a company under harassment investigation. This is ridiculous. There was no harassment. I know that. But Hartman's board doesn't know, and the media is having a field day with this. Sloan continued reading the article, her horror growing with each word. There were photos of them leaving the event together. She was just getting the same Uber, for crying out loud. From the elevator, from the hallway, and speculation. So much speculation about corporate favoritism and conflict of interest. My phone, she murmured, taking it from her clutch. 37 messages. Her best friend, Ivy. Girl, you're on the news? Her mother. Sloan Marie Mercer. Call me now. Unknown numbers. Probably journalists. This is going to ruin my career, she said aloud, reality falling like a brick. No one will hire me after this. They'll think I slept with the boss to get the job. No one will think that. Everyone will think that. Sloan stood up abruptly, the stool scraping on the floor. You don't understand. For you, this is a scandal that will pass. For me, it's the end of the line. I'm the woman in this story, Griffin. I'm always the villain. Silence. Even his mother had stopped shouting. Griffin closed his eyes. When he opened them, there was something different in them. Determination, perhaps. We need to control the narrative, he said. How? Sloan laughed without humor. Unless you have a time machine. Marriage. Excuse me? Marriage, Griffin repeated, and she realized he wasn't joking. It's not a scandal if we're engaged. It's a love story. From the phone, his mother finally spoke, voice strangely calm. Continue, Griffin. We announce the engagement tomorrow morning. We transform the narrative from inappropriate relationship to corporate romance that worked out. We protect the merger. We protect the company. We protect Sloan's career. He looked at her. After everything calms down, in a few months we quietly break up. You receive generous compensation. Everyone moves on. You've lost your mind, Sloan said categorically. It's the only solution. It's an insane idea. Do you have a better idea? Sloan opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. She didn't, and from the expression on his face, Griffin knew it. Sloan, he said, voice low, serious. I know I'm asking a lot, but in 6 hours when the market opens, your photo will be everywhere. They'll hunt you down, destroy your reputation, turn you into a headline. Unless, he hesitated, unless you're the girlfriend, the fiancée, the future wife of the CEO who's making one of the biggest mergers of the year. He's right, his mother said. It's the only play. Sloan looked at the laptop, at her own photo smeared across every screen. Thought about her mother in Minneapolis, reading these articles. About Ivy, worried. About every recruiter who would throw her resume in the trash after this. How much? She asked, voice firm. Griffin blinked. What? You said generous compensation. How much? A small, almost imperceptible smile touched his lips. 2 million, Sloan choked. 2? You're not serious. Completely serious. Plus an ironclad confidentiality agreement, of course. 2 million. She could pay off student loans, help her mother, Finally open her own event planning company, have freedom. 6 months, she said. No more. 4, 5. And you treat me as an equal in public. No condescension, no sweetheart. No making me look like your pretty secretary. Griffin extended his hand. Do we have a deal, Miss Mercer? Sloane looked at his hand. At the ring that wasn't there but soon would be. At the future that had just completely changed in 15 minutes. She shook his hand. We have a deal, darling. The word came out poisoned with sarcasm. Griffin smiled, a real smile this time, which completely transformed his face. Welcome to the family, sweetheart. From the phone, his mother laughed. You two are going to be fun. Press conference at 9 in the morning. Don't be late. The call dropped. Sloane and Griffin stood in the kitchen, still holding hands, the weight of the decision beginning to fall on them. So, she said, I guess we're engaged now. Apparently. This is crazy. Completely. She looked at him, really looked. Saw the deep, dark circles, the tension in his shoulders, the exhaustion he hid so well at the office, and something else. Something that seemed almost vulnerable. Why do you trust me? Sloane asked suddenly. You barely know me. Griffin released her hand, ran his fingers through his hair. Because you're the only person in the company who's not afraid to confront me. And because... He hesitated. Because when Robert Hutchins made that joke about you today, you smiled and stayed professional. But I saw your clenched fists. Saw that you wanted to punch him. I did, she admitted. Me too. He smiled sideways. And anyone who wants to punch Robert Hutchins can't be a bad person. Despite everything. The absurdity of the situation, the fear, the adrenaline, Sloane found herself smiling back. Okay, fiancé. So what's the plan for the next 5 hours before we ruin our lives? Griffin looked at his watch. Coffee, strategic planning, and probably a panic attack. Perfect. I love panic attacks at 5 in the morning. He served more coffee. She took off her heels. And together, two strangers who had just agreed to get married began planning the most elaborate lie of their lives. Outside, Chicago was beginning to wake up, and with it, the biggest corporate scandal of the season. But for now, in that minimalist kitchen on the top floor, Sloane Mercer and Griffin Brennan were just two extremely stressed people drinking exceptional coffee and trying not to panic. Spoiler, it didn't work. 5 hours of strategic planning had produced exactly 3 things: a stack of empty coffee cups, a headache the size of Lake Michigan, and a fake engagement story so detailed it could pass for a documentary. So we met at the office, Sloane recited, pacing Griffin's living room in her bare feet, the cocktail dress now wrinkled beyond salvation, but didn't start dating until 3 months ago because we wanted to keep it professional. Correct. Griffin was sprawled on his leather couch, tie discarded, shirt sleeves rolled up. He'd been typing on his laptop for the past hour, coordinating with his PR team. And the reason we kept it secret was because we knew people would make assumptions about favoritism, and we wanted to prove ourselves first. Sloane rubbed her temples. This is insane. We're creating an entire fictional relationship, with receipts. He turned the laptop toward her. My assistant just backdated 2 restaurant reservations, a weekend in Milwaukee, and tickets to a Cubs game. You're forging evidence of our fake romance? I'm being thorough. He shrugged. If we're going to lie, we lie well. Sloane stared at him. In the past 5 hours, she'd learned several things about Griffin Brennan that contradicted everything she thought she knew. 1, he's stress-baked. There were fresh croissants on the counter that he'd made at 5 a.m. 2, he had a younger sister named Paige who texted him memes at inappropriate hours. 3, when he wasn't being terrifying CEO Griffin, he was actually kind of nerdy. Did you just cite The Godfather while planning our fake engagement? She asked. Keep your friends close and your fabricated love story closer. He didn't even look up. Classic strategy. You're unbelievable. I'm prepared. There's a difference. He checked his watch. Speaking of which, the press conference is in 3 hours. We should go over your backstory. My backstory? I have a real story, Griffin. I don't need to make one up. You do if you want it to align with our narrative. He pulled up a document. According to this, you grew up in Minneapolis, graduated from Northwestern. I did graduate from Northwestern, with a degree in hospitality management, and you've always dreamed of running your own event planning company. Sloane froze. How do you know that? Griffin finally looked at her and something flickered across his face. Your interview. You mentioned it when I asked about your 5-year plan. You remember my interview? That was 3 months ago. I remember everything from that interview. He said it casually, like it wasn't the most bizarrely sweet thing anyone had ever said to her. You also said you thought my office needed plants, that corporate events were soulless without personal touches, and that you once accidentally set fire to a wedding cake but saved the reception by turning it into a s'mores bar. Sloane sat down slowly on the opposite end of the couch. You remember all that? You were the only candidate who wasn't terrified of me. A small smile tugged at his lips. It was refreshing. Before she could process that, his phone buzzed. Griffin glanced at it and groaned. What now? My mother is downstairs with a stylist, a PR team, and apparently a ring. A ring? Already? She doesn't waste time. He stood, offering her his hand. Ready to meet your future mother-in-law? Fake future mother-in-law, Sloane corrected, but took his hand anyway. The elevator doors opened to reveal a whirlwind named Patricia Brennan. She was 60, wearing a cream Armani suit, carrying a Birkin bag that probably cost more than Sloane's car, and looking at them with the calculating gaze of a general surveying a battlefield. Sloane Mercer. Patricia's handshake was firm. I've heard excellent things about your work. You have? Griffin won't shut up about you. She breezed past them into the apartment, followed by 3 assistants carrying garment bags. Apparently, you're the only person at Brennan Industries with functional aesthetic sense. His words, not mine. Sloane shot Griffin a look. He was suddenly very interested in his phone. Right, Patricia continued, all business. We have 2 hours and 45 minutes to make you both look like America's favorite couple. Vanessa, she gestured to a woman with purple hair and intense eyes, is our stylist. Marcus handles PR. And this, she pulled out a small velvet box, is yours. She opened it to reveal a ring that made Sloane's breath catch. Emerald-cut diamond platinum band, subtle and elegant and absolutely stunning. I can't wear that, Sloane whispered. It's insured, Patricia said dryly. And it was my grandmother's, so if you lose it, I'll hunt you down. But otherwise, it's yours for the duration of this charade. Griffin took the box, removing the ring with surprising gentleness. May I? Sloane extended her left hand, trying to ignore how her heart was racing. This wasn't real. This was business. This was... The ring slid on perfectly. How did you know my size? She breathed. Griffin's ears turned slightly red. Lucky guess. He measured your finger while you were sleeping on the couch at 2 a.m., Patricia said, examining her nails. Very creepy, darling. We'll work on your romance skills. I was being prepared. You were being a weirdo. Patricia turned to Sloane. But a well-intentioned weirdo. Now Vanessa needs to get you camera ready, and Marcus needs to drill you both on talking points. Chop chop. The next 2 hours were a blur of wardrobe changes, makeup application, and media training that felt like preparing for war. Keep your answers short and sweet, Marcus coached, pacing in front of them. If they ask about the merger, redirect to your relationship. If they ask about the scandal, laugh it off as a misunderstanding. And for the love of all that is profitable, do not look uncomfortable touching each other. We don't look uncomfortable, Griffin said. You're sitting 2 feet apart, and you both look like you're at a dentist appointment. Sloane glanced at Griffin. He was in a navy suit that made his eyes look almost silver, hair perfectly styled, looking every inch the billionaire CEO. She was in an emerald dress that Vanessa insisted brought out her eyes and made her feel like she was playing dress-up in someone else's life. Come here, Griffin said quietly. She slid closer. He put his arm around her shoulders, and she tried to ignore how natural it felt. Better? He asked Marcus. Better. Now practice the proposal story. You'll definitely get asked. They'd crafted it carefully. A rooftop dinner overlooking the city. Nothing too elaborate. Simple, romantic, believable. But as Sloane recited the fabricated details, watching Griffin nod along, something uncomfortable twisted in her chest. This was all fake. The ring, the story, the tender way he was looking at her right now. It was all for show. She needed to remember that. 5 minutes, one of the assistants called. Patricia appeared, did a final inspection, and nodded approvingly. You'll do. Now remember, you're in love, you're happy, and you're not letting anyone ruin your special moment. Got it? Got it. they said in unison. In the elevator down to the lobby, where apparently half of Chicago's media was waiting, Sloane felt her hand start to shake. Hey, Griffin caught her hand, threaded his fingers through hers. You're going to be fine. What if I mess up? What if someone asks something we didn't prepare for? Then we improvise. He squeezed her hand. Together. The elevator dinged. The doors opened to a wall of flashing cameras and shouted questions. Griffin stepped out first, still holding her hand, and Sloane took a deep breath. Here goes nothing. Mr. Brennan, is it true you're engaged? How long have you been seeing Miss Mercer? Was this relationship the reason for the late-night meeting? Griffin raised his free hand and the crowd quieted. He had that effect on people. Command presence that demanded attention without saying a word. Good morning. Thank you all for coming. His voice was steady, warm. I'd like to introduce you to my fiancé, Sloane Mercer. Fiancé. The word sent a thrill through her that she absolutely should not be feeling. Sloane and I have been dating for the past 3 months, Griffin continued. We kept our relationship private because we both value our professional reputations and didn't want anyone to question her incredible work at Brennan Industries. Miss Mercer, how did he propose? Sloane smiled, channeling every acting class she'd taken in college. It was last weekend, actually. We were having dinner on his rooftop terrace and he just asked. It was perfect. And the late-night meeting? Elevator malfunction, Griffin said smoothly. Sloane was leaving the charity event, got stuck in the wrong elevator. We were discussing the situation when the photos were taken. The timing was unfortunate, but I suppose it forced us to go public sooner than planned. A reporter in the front, Sloane recognized her from Channel 7, raised her hand. There are concerns about favoritism in the workplace. How do you address that? Griffin's arm tightened slightly around Sloane's waist. Sloane was hired before we started dating, based entirely on her qualifications and portfolio. She's one of the most talented event coordinators in Chicago, and anyone who's worked with her knows that. Our relationship doesn't change her merit. What does this mean for the Hartman merger? The merger proceeds as planned, Griffin said firmly. My personal life has no bearing on Brennan Industries' business decisions or partnerships. More questions flew, but Sloane barely heard them. She was too focused on the way Griffin's hand felt on her waist, the way he kept glancing at her like she was actually precious to him, the way her own smile didn't feel entirely fake. This is just an act, she reminded herself. A very convincing, very well-paid act. After 20 minutes, Marcus stepped forward to end the conference. That's all for today, folks. Thank you. They made it back to the elevator, and the moment the doors closed, Sloane sagged against the wall. That was terrifying. You were perfect. Griffin loosened his tie. Natural, believable. You should consider acting. I am acting. This whole thing is acting. Right. Something crossed his face. Disappointment, maybe? But it was gone too quickly to tell. Of course. The elevator reached his floor. Patricia was waiting with champagne. Brilliant work, both of you. Hartman's CEO just called. The merger is back on track. She poured 3 glasses. To the happy couple. They clinked glasses. The champagne was excellent. The victory felt hollow. Sloane's phone exploded with notifications. Ivy had sent 17 messages, each more hysterical than the last. Her mother had called 6 times, and there were already articles going up. Chicago's newest power couple, romance at Brennan Industries, CEO's secret love story. You should go home, Griffin said quietly. Get some rest. You've been up for over 24 hours. What about you? I have meetings all day. He ran a hand through his hair, messing up the perfect styling. Par for the course. Sloane hesitated. He looked exhausted, overwhelmed, and suddenly very alone despite being in a room full of people. Griffin, I'll have a car take you home. He was already walking away, phone to his ear. I'll text you later about the next steps. And just like that, the moment was over. The performance had ended. They were back to being boss and employee playing an elaborate game. Patricia touched her arm. Don't mind him. He gets like this when he's stressed. Shuts everyone out. We barely know each other, Sloane said. He doesn't owe me anything. Maybe not, but he chose you for this, Sloane. Out of everyone in that company, he chose you. Patricia smiled. That means something, even if neither of you wants to admit it yet. In the car ride home, a sleek black Mercedes that felt absurdly fancy, Sloane stared at the ring on her finger. It caught the sunlight, throwing tiny rainbows across the leather seats. 5 months. She could do 5 months of this. Take the money, save her career, move on with her life. So why did the thought of taking off this ring in 5 months make her chest ache? Her phone buzzed. A text from Griffin. "Thank you for today. You were incredible. Get some rest." She stared at the message, then typed back, "You too. Try to sleep at some point." S3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. "I'll try. P.S. Keep the ring. It suits you." Sloane looked down at her hand, at the ring that wasn't really hers, at the future she'd just fabricated. "What have I gotten myself into?" she whispered. The ring sparkled silently, keeping its secrets. Sloane woke up to 247 Instagram followers she didn't have yesterday, a phone full of messages from people she hadn't talked to since high school, and the distinct impression that her life had become a reality show without her permission. She rolled over, grabbed her phone, and immediately regretted it. The internet had opinions. So many opinions. Chicago gossip. Brennan's mystery fiancé is giving us major Cinderella vibes. That dress? Iconic. Business Insider? Sources say Mercer graduated top of her class at Northwestern. Beauty and brains. Schlartz salty corporate. Calling it now. This is a PR stunt. No way a CEO falls for his event coordinator. That last one stung more than it should. Ivy's name flashed across her screen. Sloane answered with a groan. "You're engaged?" Ivy's voice could shatter glass. "Engaged? And you didn't tell me? Your best friend since sophomore year?" "Ivy, I had to find out from TMZ. TMZ, Sloane. They were doing a segment on your dress." Sloane sat up, pushing her hair out of her face. "It all happened really fast. 3 months? You've been dating your billionaire boss for 3 months and didn't mention it once?" "Millionaire," Sloane corrected automatically. "He's very specific about that." "Oh well, excuse me. Your millionaire boss who looks like he was carved by someone with a very specific fantasy and gives you grandmother diamonds." Ivy's voice dripped sarcasm. "Totally normal. Nothing weird about keeping that secret." Sloane closed her eyes. She hated lying to Ivy, hated it. But the NDA she'd signed at 6 a.m., with Patricia watching like a very elegant hawk, was ironclad. "I wanted to tell you," she said, which was at least partially true. "We were just trying to keep it professional." "Professional?" Ivy laughed. "Babe, you work in event planning, not the CIA, but fine. I forgive you because that man is fine, and you're living every romance novel fantasy ever written." If only she knew. After promising Ivy brunch on Sunday, where she'd have to lie even more convincingly, Sloane dragged herself to the shower. The hot water helped clear her head, but nothing could prepare her for what waited in her email. Subject: this week's schedule. From Griffin Brennan Sloane, per Patricia's requirements, we need to be seen together publicly at least 3 times this week to cement the narrative. I've taken the liberty of making arrangements. Tuesday, today, dinner at Alinea, 7 p.m. Car will pick you up at 6:30. Wednesday, lunch at the office. Photographer from Chicago Magazine will be there. Thursday, charity gala, formal attire required. Saturday, brunch with my family. Also, you're moving in with me on Friday. G. Sloane read it twice, then a third time. She called him. He answered on the first ring. "Good morning. I'm what?" "Moving in, Friday. Patricia thinks it's suspicious that we're engaged but living separately." Papers rustled in the background. "Don't worry, the penthouse has 3 bedrooms. You'll have your own space. Griffin, I have a lease. I'll buy you out of it. I have stuff. I'll send movers. I have a cat." Silence. "You have a cat?" His voice changed, got softer. "What kind?" "That's not the point. What's its name?" Sloane groaned. "Pancake. His name is Pancake. He's orange and fat and hates everyone. I like him already." She could hear the smile in his voice. "Cats are welcome. I'll have someone cat-proof the apartment." "You can't just—" "Griffin, this is insane." "This whole situation is insane, Sloane. We're just leaning into it." More rustling. "Look, I know it's a lot, but we need to make this believable, and couples who just got engaged tend to want to be around each other." He had a point, a frustrating, logical point. "Fine," she said, "but Pancake gets the 2nd bedroom. Deal. See you at 6:30. Wear something nice. Alinea has 3 Michelin stars." He hung up before she could protest further. Sloane looked at Pancake. who was sprawled across her comforter like an orange blob of judgment. "We're moving in with my fake fiancé," she told him. Pancake yawned, showing all his teeth. "My thoughts exactly." The dress Vanessa had sent over was midnight blue, elegant without being too formal, and fit like it had been made for her, because it probably had been, in the last 12 hours. These people were terrifyingly efficient. The car arrived exactly at 6:30, same driver as yesterday, a man named Frank who had kind eyes and didn't ask invasive questions. "Big night?" he asked as they pulled into traffic. "First official date," Sloan said. "Apparently the entire city needs to know we're in love." Frank chuckled. "Mr. Brennan's been with the family for 8 years. Never seen him like this." "Like what?" "Nervous." Frank caught her eye in the rearview mirror. "He called me 3 times today to confirm the pickup time. He never calls me. His assistant does." Something warm bloomed in Sloane's chest. She immediately squashed it. Alinea was the kind of restaurant that made you feel underdressed even in couture, all modern angles and mood lighting, with a tasting menu that cost more than her monthly grocery budget. Griffin was waiting outside, talking on his phone. He wore a charcoal suit with no tie, top button undone, and Sloane had to remind herself to breathe like a normal person. He saw her, ended his call mid-sentence, and just stared. "Hi," she said, suddenly nervous. "Hi." He cleared his throat. "You look... that dress is... Vanessa sent it. Remind me to give Vanessa a raise." He offered his arm. "Shall we?" The restaurant was exactly as pretentious as Sloane expected, but the food was incredible. Each course was a tiny work of art, flavors she didn't know could exist, presentations that belonged in museums. "This is insane," she whispered after the 4th course. "Is that edible helium?" "Probably." Griffin watched her with amusement. "You're the first person I've brought here who actually seems to enjoy it. Who doesn't enjoy edible helium? My ex-girlfriend thought it was trying too hard." He took a sip of wine. She preferred places where she could be seen, rather than places with actual good food. "Your ex sounds delightful." Vanessa thought so. They went to yoga together. His expression darkened slightly. "Until Vanessa walked in on her with my former CFO." "Oh." Sloane set down her fork. "That's ancient history." But his jaw was tight. "Happened 2 years ago. I'm over it." He definitely wasn't over it. "For what it's worth," Sloane said carefully, "anyone who cheats on someone who makes them coffee like you do is an idiot." Griffin's eyes snapped to hers. Then slowly he smiled. "That's the nicest thing anyone said to me in months. Your bar is concerningly low. Welcome to my life." The next course arrived, something involving truffle foam and gold leaf, and the conversation shifted. They talked about everything, her disaster wedding stories. The cake fire was just the beginning. His complete inability to keep plants alive, 7 casualties this year alone. Their shared hatred of small talk at corporate events. "I once hid in a coat closet for 20 minutes to avoid a conversation about golf," Griffin admitted. "I pretended to have a phone emergency and spent an hour in my car. We're both terrible at this." "The worst," Sloane agreed. "It was easy. Too easy." She kept forgetting this was fake, that they were here because of a scandal and a merger and a very convenient arrangement. Then Griffin's hand covered hers on the table, and she remembered. "Photographer," he murmured. 3 o'clock. She turned slightly. Sure enough, someone with a massive camera lens was trying to be subtle by a potted plant. "Smile," Griffin said. "Look madly in love." Sloane turned back to him, and the word that came to mind wasn't act, because the way he was looking at her, intense, focused, like she was the only person in the room, didn't feel like acting. "Griffin, you have a freckle," he said quietly. "Right here." His thumb brushed just below her left eye. "I noticed it during your interview. Spent the entire meeting trying not to stare at it." Her heart stopped. "You did? You made me forget every question I was supposed to ask." His hand was still on her face, warm and steady. "I hired you because you were qualified, but I wanted to hire you the moment you walked in. This wasn't in the script. This wasn't part of the plan." "Griffin," she whispered, "what are we doing?" For a moment he looked as lost as she felt. Then his phone buzzed, and the moment shattered. He pulled back, checked the message, and his expression shuddered. "Patricia." She saw the photos already. "We're performing beautifully." "Right. Performing." Sloane pasted on a smile. "Well, we better keep up the good work." Something flickered in his eyes. Disappointment? Hurt? But he nodded. Desert should be here soon. The rest of the dinner was perfect. The food, the ambiance, the conversation. But something had shifted. They were back to playing roles, hitting marks, delivering lines. When Frank dropped her off at her apartment, soon to be her former apartment, Griffin walked her to the door. "Thank you for tonight," he said formally. "You were perfect?" She couldn't keep the bitterness out of her voice. "Believable? Good for the cameras?" He flinched. "I was going to say wonderful, but if you prefer, I'm sorry." Sloane rubbed her temples. "I'm just tired. This is all a lot." "I know." He looked like he wanted to say more, but settled for, "Get some rest. I'll see you tomorrow for lunch." "Right, the Chicago magazine shoot." She pulled out her keys. More performance art. "Sloane, good night, Griffin." She closed the door before he could respond, leaned against it, and finally let herself feel the full weight of what she'd agreed to. 5 months of this. 5 months of pretending, of almost moments that weren't real, of a ring that meant nothing. Her phone buzzed. "I'm sorry if I made you uncomfortable tonight. That wasn't my intention. Sleep well, G." She stared at the message, then typed back, "You didn't. I'm just trying to remember where the line is between fake and real." S3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. "Let me know when you figure it out. I'm still looking for it too." Sloane looked down at her hand, at the ring catching the hallway light. This was going to be so much harder than she thought. The Chicago magazine photographer was named Derek, had a man bun and kept saying things like, "Give me intimacy," and "Show me the passion," while Sloane tried not to die of embarrassment in Griffin's office. "Okay, now Griffin, put your hand on her waist. Lower, lower, perfect." Sloane looked at him like he just quoted poetry. "I don't think Griffin knows any poetry," Sloane muttered. "I know some poetry," Griffin said defensively. "Corporate merger agreements don't count." Derek clapped his hands. This banter. Give me more of this energy, but with more longing." Sloane caught Griffin's eye. He looked as uncomfortable as she felt, which was oddly comforting. "How about we just be natural?" Griffin suggested. Derek gasped, like he'd suggested they set the office on fire. "Natural, natural. This is Chicago magazine, not your family photo album. I need drama, I need romance, I need—" "Lunch?" Sloane offered hopefully. "Brilliant." Derek pointed at her. "Yes, intimate lunch scene, Griffin feeding Sloane a strawberry. The symbolic implications—" "I'm not feeding her a strawberry," Griffin said flatly. "A grape? No. Chocolate? Derek." "Fine." Derek threw his hands up. "We'll do the boring lunch thing. But I want genuine smiles, real chemistry. Make me believe in love." The spread Derek had ordered was excessive. Sushi, Italian, Thai. Enough food for 12 people crammed onto Griffin's conference table. Sloane picked at a California roll while Griffin pretended to read a document he'd already reviewed twice. "You know," she said quietly, "for a fake couple, we're really bad at looking happy together." Griffin glanced up. "We looked happy at Alinea. That was dinner. Apparently we're only convincing in low lighting." A smile tugged at his lips. "What does that say about us? That we're vampires?" He laughed, actually laughed, and Derek nearly fell over trying to capture it. "Yes, that, more of that." Derek was clicking away furiously. "Griffin, say something funny again. I don't perform on command. Tell her about the plant incident." Patricia's voice came from the doorway. She swept in wearing head-to-toe Valentino, carrying her tablet like a weapon. "The ficus situation." Griffin's ears turned red. "We don't need to—" "Oh, we absolutely do," Sloane said, grinning. "Plant incident?" Patricia settled into a chair, clearly enjoying this. Last month, Griffin decided his office needed more life. He bought 7 plants from an expensive botanical boutique. They were recommended. He killed all 7 within 2 weeks. The care instructions were unclear. "One was a cactus, darling." Sloane burst out laughing. "You killed a cactus?" "It was a complicated cactus," Griffin protested, but he was smiling now too. "The woman at the shop said it needed moderate water, and I gave it moderate water every day," Patricia finished. "It drowned. In my defense, moderate is subjective. Derek was having the time of his life, camera clicking constantly. This is gold, pure gold, the intimacy, the playfulness." Sloane wiped tears from her eyes. What happened to the other 6? Overwatering, underwatering, wrong window, right window but wrong time of year. Griffin counted on his fingers. One I'm pretty sure just gave up on life from proximity to me. That's the saddest thing I've ever heard. I'm banned from 3 plant stores in Chicago. 3? I have a reputation. Patricia stood, looking satisfied. Well, my work here is done. Derek, make sure you get shots of them actually eating. The internet is very concerned about whether Sloan is being fed properly. The internet is concerned about what? Sloan asked. There's a Reddit thread, Patricia said casually. 1,700 comments debating whether Griffin is too workaholic to remember meals. You're apparently a relationship green flag for probably making sure he eats vegetables. Griffin dropped his head to his desk. I hate the internet. The internet loves you, darling. Well, 63% of it does. 37% thinks this is a publicity stunt, but we can't win them all. Patricia checked her tablet. Oh, and Sloan, the movers are confirmed for Friday at 9 a.m. I've arranged for Pancake to be transported separately in a luxury pet carrier. Pancake gets a luxury pet carrier? He's part of the family now. We have standards. After Patricia left and Derek finally got enough shots. You two are magic together. The camera loves you. Sloan and Griffin were finally alone in his office. Well, alone except for the remains of lunch for 12 and the weird tension that had been building since last night. So, Sloan said, picking at a spring roll, Reddit thinks I make you eat vegetables. You did order salad at Alinea. It was deconstructed salad with foam, that barely counts. Griffin leaned back in his chair, studying her. For the record, I do eat vegetables. Name 3. Potatoes. Don't count. Since when? Since always. Nutritionally speaking, potatoes are basically bread. He paused. Actually, that explains a lot about my diet. Sloan laughed, and something in his expression softened. I like that, he said quietly. What? Your laugh. He seemed to search for words. Real. Most people laugh differently around me, like they're afraid to be too loud or too genuine. But you just laugh. The air between them shifted, charged with something Sloan didn't want to name. Griffin. His phone rang. He glanced at it, frowned, and answered. Yes? Whatever he heard made his entire body tense. When? A pause. How bad? Another pause. I'll be there in 10 minutes. He hung up, already moving. I have to go. What's wrong? The Hartman deal. There's a complication. He grabbed his jacket, then stopped. The gala tomorrow night. I might need to bring you. Hartman's CEO will be there with his wife, and Patricia thinks, I'll be there, Sloan said immediately. Whatever you need. Griffin looked at her, really looked, and something passed between them that felt dangerously close to real. Thank you, he said softly. Then he was gone, leaving Sloan alone with enough food for a small army, and a feeling in her chest she absolutely shouldn't be having. Her phone buzzed. Ivy, the magazine shoot pics are already online and you two look insanely in love. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. Also, he looks at you like you hung the moon, just FYI. Sloan pulled up the photos Derek had already posted to his Instagram. He wasn't wrong. In every shot, laughing over lunch, Griffin's hand on hers, the way they leaned toward each other, they looked like the real thing. The problem was, Sloan was starting to feel like the real thing too. Friday morning arrived with chaos. The movers Patricia hired were terrifyingly efficient. Her entire apartment packed and transported in under 3 hours. Pancake, however, was less cooperative. Sir, we need to get him in the carrier, one mover said nervously, eyeing the hissing orange fur ball under Sloan's bed. He doesn't like change, Sloan said, crawling halfway under the bed. Pancake, come on. We talked about this. Pancake yowled like she'd personally betrayed him. Maybe some treats, the mover suggested. He's on a diet. Maybe, not today. 20 minutes and an entire bag of salmon treats later, Pancake was secured in what Patricia had described as a luxury pet carrier, but looked more like a small apartment. It had cushions. Plural. Your cat lives better than I do, Sloan muttered. The penthouse was exactly as she remembered. Gorgeous, minimalist, intimidating. Except now there were cat toys scattered across the living room, and the elaborate cat tree by the window. You bought him a cat tree? Sloan asked Griffin, who was working on his laptop at the kitchen counter. Patricia bought him a cat tree. I bought him the automated feeder, the water fountain, and the heated bed. He didn't look up from his screen. What? You said he was fat. I researched optimal cat care. You researched? There are surprisingly strong opinions about cat hydration online. Sloane released Pancake from his carrier. He immediately darted under the couch. He hates me, Griffin observed. He hates everyone. Don't take it personally. I bought him a heated bed. He'll come around. Sloane sat on the stool next to him. How did the Hartman thing go yesterday? Griffin's jaw tightened. Complicated. Their board is getting cold feet about the merger. Too much media attention on my personal life. Because of me. Because of a situation we're both in. He finally looked at her. It's not your fault, Sloane. But if we weren't, then we'd be dealing with a harassment scandal instead of a romance story. This is still the better option. He closed his laptop. The gala tonight is crucial. Hartman's CEO, Richard, is old-fashioned. Traditional. He needs to see us as a stable, committed couple. No pressure. I have faith in you. He said it simply, like it was fact. You've handled everything else perfectly. Everything else didn't have a billion-dollar merger riding on it. Million. The merger is worth 800 million, not a billion. Oh, well, that's completely different then. I feel so much better. Griffin smiled. There's that sarcasm I've grown fond of. Fond of? You once told me my sarcasm was professionally inappropriate. That was before I knew you. Now I find it charming. Charming. In a terrifying sort of way. Sloane threw a dish towel at him. He caught it, laughing, and for a moment they were just two people in a kitchen, not playing roles or managing scandals. Then Pancake emerged from under the couch, walked directly to Griffin, and head-butted his leg. They both stared. Did he just? Griffin looked genuinely shocked. He likes you. Sloane was equally amazed. He never likes anyone. Griffin slowly reached down and scratched behind Pancake's ears. The cat started purring like a motor engine. I think he's broken, Sloane said. Or he has excellent taste. Griffin kept petting Pancake, who had now flopped over for belly rubs. Aren't you supposed to be fat? Patricia said you were fat. He's husky, Sloane corrected. The vet said he's just big-boned. The vet lied to you. Pancake, the traitor, was now fully sprawled in Griffin's lap, purring loud enough to wake the neighbors. I've had him for 4 years, Sloane said. 4 years. He's never done this. What can I say? Griffin looked insufferably pleased with himself. I'm cat-approved. This is unnatural. This is destiny. You're ridiculous. And yet the cat loves me. Sloane's phone alarm went off. We need to start getting ready for the gala. Griffin gently moved Pancake to the heated bed he'd bought. The cat circled twice and settled in immediately, still purring. Traitor, Sloane told him. Pancake closed his eyes, entirely unconcerned. Your room is the second door on the left, Griffin said. Vanessa already delivered your dress, and Sloane? She paused at the hallway. We've got this. Tonight, tomorrow, all of it. His eyes were steady, confident. Together. Together. The word shouldn't warm her as much as it did. Together, she agreed. 4 hours later, Sloane stood in front of the mirror in a gown that probably cost more than her first car. Deep emerald green, elegant and dramatic, with her hair swept up and the engagement ring catching every light. She looked like someone who belonged in Griffin Brennan's world. The question was, did she want to? A knock on her door. Car's here, Griffin called. Sloane took a deep breath, grabbed her clutch, and opened the door. Griffin froze mid-sentence, whatever he'd been about to say dying on his lips. Is it too much? Sloane asked nervously. Vanessa said, You're stunning. His voice was rough. Absolutely stunning. You clean up pretty well yourself. He did. Tuxedo perfectly tailored, hair-styled, looking every inch the powerful CEO. But it was his eyes that caught her, the way he was looking at her like she'd stolen every thought from his head. Shall we? He offered his arm. Let's go save your merger, Sloane said, taking it. As they stepped into the elevator, their reflection caught in the mirrored walls. They looked perfect together, like they belonged. Sloane just wished she knew if any of it was real. The Chicago Historical Society ballroom was the kind of place that made you feel like you'd stepped into a different era. Crystal chandeliers, marble columns, women in gowns that cost more than cars, men in tuxedos discussing deals worth millions like they were debating lunch options. Sloane had planned events here before, but she'd never attended one as a guest. And definitely never as the fake fiancé of the man half the room wanted to do business with. Smile, Griffin murmured, his hand warm on her lower back. Richard Hartman is at 3 o'clock and he's watching us. Sloane turned slightly, catching sight of a silver-haired man in his 60s, watching them with shrewd eyes. Next to him, a woman in champagne silk who must be his wife. The one who looks like he eats corporate raiders for breakfast? She whispered back. That's the one. Griffin's hand tightened slightly on her waist, and he's headed this way. Brennan! Richard's voice boomed across the space. There you are! And this must be the young lady I've been reading so much about. Up close, Richard Hartman was even more intimidating. Tall, broad-shouldered, with a handshake that could crush bones. But his wife, Margaret, had kind eyes and a genuine smile. Sloane Mercer, Sloane said, shaking both their hands. It's wonderful to meet you. The event coordinator who stole our Griffin's heart, Margaret said warmly. I've been dying to meet you. Richard's been talking my ear off about this merger, but I'm much more interested in your story. Margaret thinks everything is about romance, Richard said gruffly, but his eyes softened when he looked at his wife. 42 years married and she still cries at commercials. They were puppies, Richard. Puppies. Griffin relaxed slightly beside Sloane. How are you enjoying Chicago, Mrs. Hartman? Oh, call me Margaret, please. And it's lovely, though I miss the gardens back home in Connecticut. She turned to Sloane. Do you garden, dear? I kill plants, Sloane admitted. Spectacularly. My last attempt at herbs ended with what I'm pretty sure was a small ecosystem developing in the basil. Griffin coughed to cover a laugh. Margaret, however, looked delighted. Oh, I like her. Richard, she's funny. Griffin needs funny. Griffin needs a lot of things, Richard said, but there was warmth in it. A good woman being chief among them. The business world is cutthroat, Miss Mercer. A man needs someone who keeps him grounded. I do my best, Sloane said, playing the role perfectly. Though mostly I just make sure he remembers to eat something other than coffee. She's exaggerating, Griffin protested. You had coffee for breakfast this morning. And a croissant that you made at 5 a.m. during a stress baking episode. Richard laughed, actually laughed. Stress baking? Brennan, you continue to surprise me. It's a recent development, Griffin said dryly. They chatted for another 10 minutes. Safe topics, easy conversation. Margaret was charming, asking about their engagement story, their plans. Richard watched everything with those calculating eyes, and Sloane could practically see him assessing, measuring, deciding if Griffin was stable enough, committed enough, trustworthy enough for an $800 million deal. No pressure. When the Hartmans moved on to greet other guests, Griffin exhaled slowly. That went well, Sloane said. Margaret likes you. That's good. He accepted champagne from a passing waiter, handed her a glass. Richard's harder to read. He's protective of his company, makes sense. He's also traditional, old-school values, the kind of man who believes a handshake is binding and family comes first. Griffin took a sip. The merger matters to him, but not if he thinks I'm unstable or unreliable. Hence the devoted fiancé. Hence the devoted fiancé, he agreed. The evening continued in a blur of introductions and small talk. Sloane met more wealthy people in 3 hours than she had in her entire life. Griffin never left her side, his hand always on her back or holding hers, introducing her with genuine pride in his voice that didn't feel entirely fake. You're good at this, he said during a brief moment alone. Talking to people, making them feel comfortable. It's literally my job. It's more than that. He was looking at her intently. You make everything easier. Before Sloane could respond, a woman's voice cut through the crowd like a knife. Griffin, there you are. They both turned. The woman approaching was stunning, model tall, designer everything, blonde hair that probably had its own insurance policy, and the way she was looking at Griffin made Sloane's stomach clench. Vanessa, Griffin said, and his entire body went rigid. I didn't know you'd be here. Wait, Vanessa, as in, your ex? Sloane whispered. Griffin's jaw tightened in confirmation. Vanessa's smile was sharp as glass. I'm here with the Hartman party. Margaret and I go way back. Her eyes slid to Sloane, assessing and dismissing in one glance. And you must be the new, what was it? Event coordinator? Fiancé, Sloane corrected, ice in her voice. Sloane Mercer. Oh, right. The engagement. Vanessa's laugh was musical and cruel. How sudden. What's it been, Griffin? 6 months since we broke up? 2 years, Griffin said flatly. Time flies. Vanessa moved closer, invading his space in a way that made Sloane want to physically insert herself between them. I have to say, I'm surprised. You always said you'd never mix business with pleasure, that it was professionally inappropriate. Griffin's hand found Sloane's, squeezing tight. People change. Apparently, Vanessa's eyes were calculating, though I wonder what Richard thinks about his potential business partner getting engaged to an employee just weeks before their merger. Seems convenient. The implication hung in the air like poison. Seems like love, Sloane said firmly, stepping closer to Griffin, which you'd recognize if you'd ever actually felt it. Vanessa's smile froze. Excuse me? You heard me. Sloane was done playing nice. This woman had cheated on Griffin, broken his trust, and now had the audacity to show up and question their relationship. Fake or not, nobody got to treat him like that. Griffin and I may have worked together, but what we have is real. And if you can't be happy for him, at least have the grace to walk away. For a moment, Vanessa just stared. Then she laughed, but it sounded hollow. Well, she's got claws. How entertaining. She turned to Griffin. Good luck, darling, you're going to need it. She swept away, leaving a trail of expensive perfume and awkward tension. Griffin was staring at Sloane. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did. She was still holding his hand. Nobody talks to you like that, I don't care who they are. Sloane. Mr. Brennan? A server appeared. Mrs. Hartman asked if you and Miss Mercer would join them for dinner. Private dining room. Griffin and Sloane exchanged glances. This is it, he said quietly. This is where Richard decides. Then let's go show him what we've got. The private dining room was intimate. Just the Hartmans, Griffin, Sloane, and 2 other board members from Hartman Corp. The meal was exquisite, the wine probably older than Sloane, and the conversation carefully steered away from business. Until dessert. I'll be direct, Brennan, Richard said, setting down his fork. I like you. Always have. You're smart, ambitious, ethical, rare qualities in our world. But this merger is the culmination of my life's work. I'm trusting you with my legacy. I understand, sir. Do you? Richard leaned back. Because I've seen a lot of flash-in-the-pan romances in my time. Relationships that look perfect for the cameras and fall apart the moment nobody's watching. I need to know this. He gestured between Griffin and Sloane. Is real. That you're not going to implode spectacularly in 6 months and take my company down with you. The room went silent. Griffin opened his mouth, but Sloane spoke first. Mr. Hartman, can I be honest with you? Please. When I met Griffin, I thought he was the most infuriating man I'd ever encountered. She felt Griffin tense beside her, but continued. He made me redo an event layout 5 times because the chairs were emotionally wrong. He drinks coffee like it's water and forgets to eat real food. He once killed a cactus through sheer determination. Margaret laughed softly. But, Sloane continued, he also remembers every detail about people. He called Robert Hutchins the morning after he made inappropriate comments to me at an event, just to make sure it never happened again. He stress-bakes croissants at 5 a.m. when he's worried. He researched optimal cat care for 3 hours because my cat was moving in, and he wanted him to be comfortable. She turned to look at Griffin and found him staring at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Griffin Brennan is loyal, brilliant, and more caring than he lets anyone see. And yes, our relationship happened fast. Maybe too fast by conventional standards. But sometimes you just know. And I know that he's someone I want to build a life with. Someone I trust completely. The words were supposed to be part of the act, the performance. But as they left her mouth, Sloane realized with terrifying clarity that she meant every single one. Richard studied them both for a long moment. Then he smiled. That's what I needed to hear. He raised his glass. To Brennan Industries and Hartman Corp. May our partnership be as strong as the love in this room. They all drank. The tension broke. Conversation resumed. But under the table, Griffin's hand found hers and squeezed so tight it almost hurt. When dinner finally ended and they made it back to the car, neither of them spoke. Frank drove through Chicago's glittering streets while Sloane stared out the window, her heart pounding. Sloane, Griffin said quietly. Don't. She couldn't look at him. Please don't. What you said in there was part of the act. I know. She forced brightness into her voice. Pretty convincing, right? Richard totally bought it. That's not what We should celebrate. You got your merger. I played my part perfectly. Everyone wins. The car pulled up to the building. Sloane was out before it fully stopped, hurrying to the elevator. desperately needing space to breathe, to think, to figure out when this stopped being fake and started feeling terrifyingly real. Griffin caught up with her in the elevator, his hand stopping the doors from closing. "Talk to me," he said. "There's nothing to talk about. You just gave a speech about building a life with me, about trust, about selling the performance." She finally looked at him, and whatever he saw in her face made him step back. "That's all this is, Griffin. A performance, a business arrangement, $2 million and 5 months of my life. Is that really all it is?" The question hung between them, dangerous and electric. "It has to be," Sloane whispered. "Because if it's not, then I'm the biggest idiot in Chicago." The elevator doors tried to close again. Griffin held them open, his eyes searching hers. "What if we're both idiots?" he asked softly. Sloane's heart stopped. "What? What if I told you that speech wasn't the first time I've thought about building a life with you? That I've been thinking about it since you yelled at me about emotionally incorrect chairs? Griffin, what if I told you that this stopped being fake for me around hour 3 of our coffee planning session? That the only thing I'm acting is like I don't want this to be real?" She couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only stare at him as her entire carefully constructed understanding of their arrangement crumbled. "You don't mean that," she said, but it came out uncertain. "I never say things I don't mean." He stepped into the elevator fully, letting the doors close. "I'm terrible at lying, Sloane. You know that. So when I say that you're the first person in years who makes me want to come home, who makes me laugh, who makes me think about futures instead of just mergers and margins, I mean it. This is crazy. This whole thing is crazy." He smiled, but it was shaky. "But maybe the craziest part is that I don't want it to end in 5 months. I don't want you to take the money and leave. I want—" The elevator dinged. They'd reached the penthouse. "What do you want?" Sloane asked, her voice barely a whisper. Griffin looked at her like she was the only thing in the world that mattered. "You," he said simply. "I want you. For real this time." Sloane's world tilted on its axis. Every logical thought, every self-preservation instinct screamed at her to walk away, to stick to the plan, to not fall for the one man who could destroy her career and heart in one move. But her heart, her stupid, reckless heart, had other ideas. "I want that too," she admitted, "which is probably the worst decision I've ever made." "Probably," Griffin agreed. "We're going to screw this up, most likely. This violates every rule of fake relationships. All of them." Sloane laughed, slightly hysterical. "We're both disasters. Complete disasters," he confirmed. Then, softer, "Can I kiss you? For real this time, not for cameras." Her answer was to close the distance between them. The kiss was nothing like the careful, staged moments they'd shared for photographers. This was real, desperate and sweet, and slightly clumsy because they were both shaking. Griffin's hands cupped her face like she was precious, and Sloane's fingers tangled in his hair, and for one perfect moment nothing else existed. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Griffin rested his forehead against hers. "So," he said. "Now what?" "Now," Sloane said, "we figure out how to turn our fake engagement into a real relationship without anyone noticing we've been lying this entire time." "That sounds complicated. Impossibly complicated." "Good thing we're both smart." "Good thing," she agreed. From inside the penthouse, they heard a loud meow. Pancake, demanding attention. Griffin laughed. "Our cat is judging us." "Your cat? He chose you, remember? Pretty sure he came with you. Package deal." "Is that what I am? A package deal?" Griffin kissed her again, softer this time. "You're everything." And standing in that elevator, with Chicago glittering below them and a future suddenly full of real possibilities instead of fake arrangements, Sloane thought that maybe, just maybe, being an idiot wasn't so bad after all. 3 weeks later, Sloane woke up to find Griffin's side of the bed empty. She'd gotten used to this. Him waking before dawn, unable to sleep past 5 a.m., his brain already churning through deals and strategies. What she hadn't gotten used to was the smell of fresh pastries wafting from the kitchen. Stress baking. Again. She found him surrounded by croissants, focaccia, and what looked like an attempt at sourdough, typing furiously on his laptop while wearing pajama pants and a Northwestern t-shirt she was 90% sure was actually hers. "Morning," she said, stealing a croissant. "What crisis are we baking through today?" Griffin looked up, his hair adorably messy. "The merger closes tomorrow." "I know. That's good, right?" "It's great. It's perfect. It's everything I've worked toward for 2 years. He stared at his laptop. So why do I feel like I'm about to throw up? Sloan hopped onto the counter beside him. Because you're terrified that the moment the merger goes through, you won't have an excuse to keep me around anymore. He blinked. How did you? Griffin, you've mentioned after the merger exactly 0 times in 3 weeks. You won't even talk about the timeline past tomorrow. And you've stress-baked enough bread to feed the entire building. She took his hand. We need to talk about what happens next. I know. The contract says 5 months. We're barely at 1. I know, he repeated quieter. And we told everyone this was real, but it started as fake, and now it is real. But they don't know it wasn't always real, and… Sloan stopped. I'm spiraling. We're both spiraling. Griffin pulled her closer, until she was standing between his knees. I don't want this to end, Sloan. Any of it. The merger was supposed to be everything, but now it's just Tuesday. You're the part I can't stop thinking about. Her heart did that stupid fluttering thing it had been doing a lot lately. So what do we do? I have an idea. He looked nervous. But you might hate it. Try me. Griffin took a deep breath. We come clean. Tell everyone the truth. That we started fake but became real. Deal with whatever fallout comes. Sloan's stomach dropped. Griffin, that could destroy everything. The merger, your reputation, my career. Or, he interrupted gently, it could be the truth. And maybe people will understand. Maybe Richard will appreciate the honesty. Maybe we'll both be unemployed and humiliated. Maybe, he admitted. But I'm tired of lying. Especially to the people who matter. He cupped her face. I want to tell my sister that I actually am this happy. I want to tell Patricia she was right about you being perfect for me, even if it happened the weirdest way possible. I want to tell the world that I fell in love with my event coordinator, and I don't care who knows it. Sloan's breath caught. You love me? Griffin's ears turned red. That wasn't how I planned to say it. How did you plan to say it? With less panic baking in the background, maybe candlelight. Definitely not while wearing your t-shirt. He smiled shakily. But yes, I love you. I'm in love with you. Have been since you called my aesthetic choices emotionally constipated. I never said that. You implied it heavily. Sloan laughed, tears threatening. I love you too, even though you're terrible at plants and drink coffee like a normal person drinks water and organize your books by color instead of author like a psychopath. I have a system. She kissed him, cutting off whatever defense he was about to make. When they broke apart, both smiling, Pancake meowed loudly from his heated bed. Even the cat agrees, Griffin said. We should tell the truth. Your cat. He chose you. Our cat, Griffin corrected. And our decision. What do you think? Sloan looked at the laptop, at the merger documents ready to be signed, at the life they'd built on a foundation of lies that had somehow become the most honest thing she'd ever experienced. I think, she said slowly, that we should call Patricia. Patricia Brennan had seen a lot in her 63 years. Corporate espionage, hostile takeovers, 3 recessions, and one memorable incident involving a CEO and a ferret that nobody spoke about anymore. But her son, calling an emergency meeting the day before the biggest merger of his career to confess that his engagement started as a publicity stunt? That was new. Run that by me again, she said, setting down her coffee with dangerous precision. Slowly. They were in Griffin's office, Sloan, Griffin, and Patricia, who looked like she was deciding between laughter and homicide. Griffin cleared his throat. The engagement started as a strategic solution to the scandal. We agreed to fake it for 5 months, protect the merger, and then quietly separate. Fake it, Patricia repeated. But then it became real, Sloan added quickly. We fell in love. Actually, fell in love. So now it's not fake, but it started fake, and we want to tell the truth before you sign $800 million worth of paperwork with a man who values honesty above all else. Patricia closed her eyes. You two are the smartest idiots I've ever met. Is that a compliment? Griffin asked. It's an observation. She opened her eyes. Richard Hartman built his entire empire on integrity. His handshake is his bond. If he finds out you lied to him, that's why we want to tell him first, Griffin said, before he hears it from someone else, before the merger closes. You could lose everything. I know. Your reputation, your company, I know, Mom. Griffin's voice was steady. But I can't build a future on a lie. even if that lie became the truth. Patricia looked at him for a long moment, then at Sloane, then back at her son. "You really love her," she said quietly. "More than the merger. More than the company. More than anything. And you," Patricia turned to Sloane, "you love my disaster of a son?" "Completely," Sloane said, "even though he's definitely a disaster." "Hey," Patricia held up a hand. "Richard is in his hotel. I'll call him. Set up a meeting for this afternoon." She stood. "But if this goes sideways, you're both buying me a very expensive vacation." "Deal," they said in unison. Richard Hartman's hotel suite was nicer than most people's homes. Floor-to-ceiling windows, imported furniture, and Margaret knitting by the window like she didn't have a care in the world. "Griffin, Sloane," Margaret set down her knitting. "What a lovely surprise. We were just discussing dinner plans." "Actually," Griffin said, "we need to talk to you both about something important." Richard looked up from his newspaper, eyes sharpening. "This sounds serious." "It is." Griffin glanced at Sloane, who squeezed his hand. "Sir, Mrs. Hartman, I need to tell you the truth about our engagement." The next 10 minutes were possibly the longest of Sloane's life. Griffin explained everything: the elevator, the scandal, the arrangement, how it became real. He didn't sugarcoat anything, didn't make excuses, just laid out the facts with painful honesty. When he finished, silence filled the room. Richard stood, walked to the window, hands behind his back. Margaret had stopped knitting, her expression unreadable. "So," Richard said finally, not turning around, "you lied to me." "Yes, sir." "Deceived me about the nature of your relationship to protect the merger." "Yes, sir." "Used your personal life as a business strategy." Griffin's jaw tightened. "Yes, sir." More silence. Sloane felt like she might throw up. Then Margaret laughed. Everyone turned to stare at her. She was actually giggling, tears forming in her eyes. "Oh, this is wonderful," she said, wiping her eyes. "Richard, they pulled a Mary and James." Richard's stern expression cracked. "Don't bring that up. We have to. It's exactly the same." Margaret turned to Sloane and Griffin, eyes twinkling. 43 years ago, Richard and I got engaged to merge our families' competing businesses. Totally strategic, completely loveless arrangement. We were going to divorce after a year." Sloane's jaw dropped. "You were fake engaged?" "For 6 months," Margaret laughed. "Then this stubborn man went and fell in love with me for real. Took him 4 months to admit it, though." Richard's ears turned red. "That's not, we agreed not to." "Oh, hush. They deserve to know." Margaret beamed at them. "The best relationships often start in the most unexpected ways." "But I lied to you," Griffin said, still looking shell-shocked. "About something important." "You told me the truth before it mattered," Richard corrected, finally turning around. "Before the contracts were signed. Before you locked me into something built on deception." He walked over, extended his hand. "That takes integrity, son. Real integrity." Griffin shook his hand, looking dazed. "So, the merger goes forward, on one condition." Richard smiled. "I get to attend the real wedding, and it better be spectacular." The merger closed the next day without a hitch. Brennan Industries and Hartman Corp became one entity. Stock prices soared, and Griffin officially became one of the most successful CEOs in Chicago. But that night, in their penthouse with pancakes sprawled across both their laps, none of that seemed to matter as much as the woman beside him. "So," Sloane said, playing with her ring, the one that was real now, in every way, "we should probably plan an actual wedding at some point." "Eventually," Griffin agreed. "No rush. Your mother is going to have opinions." "My mother has opinions about everything." "Fair point." She shifted closer. "Can I ask you something?" "Anything." "When did you know that this was real?" Griffin thought about it. "Remember the morning after the press conference? When you left and I texted you about the ring? Before that, when you said you were trying to find the line between fake and real?" He turned to look at her. "I realized I didn't want there to be a line. I wanted it all to be real. Every moment, every smile, everything." "That was day 2, Sloane said softly. "We barely knew each other." "I know. Ridiculous, right?" "Completely ridiculous." She kissed him. "I knew at the coffee planning session, when you remembered everything from my interview. Nobody had ever paid that much attention to me before. I couldn't stop paying attention to you if I tried." Pancake meowed, offended at being squished between them. "Sorry, buddy," Griffin said, adjusting so the cat had more room. Though this is your fault too. If you hadn't approved of me, who knows what would have happened. He has excellent taste, Sloane said. He really does. Her phone buzzed. Ivy sending her daily message demanding details about the fairy tale romance she was living. Sloane smiled, typing back a response that was, for once, completely honest. It's real, all of it. I'll tell you everything at brunch. What are you smiling about? Griffin asked. Just thinking about how we started. Elevator malfunction, scandal, fake engagement, $2 million. Speaking of which, Griffin grabbed his laptop. The contract is void now, since we're actually together, but you should still get the money. For emotional damages, if nothing else. Griffin, I'm not taking $2 million. Then take it as startup capital for your event planning company. Sloane froze. What? You said you wanted to start your own company. Do it. He was already pulling up documents. I'll be your first investor. No strings attached, completely separate from us. Just let me help make your dreams happen. She couldn't find words. That's the most romantic thing anyone's ever offered me. More romantic than fake engagement rings and stress-baked croissants. Way more romantic. Griffin closed the laptop, pulled her closer. Marry me. We're already engaged. I know, but this time I'm asking for real. No contracts, no timelines, no merger protection. Just you and me and possibly our judgmental cat. Definitely our judgmental cat, Sloane corrected. And yes. Obviously, yes. Obviously? Did you think I'd say no? I just agreed to take $2 million from you to start a business. I'm clearly in this for the long haul. Just for the money, then? Completely mercenary, she agreed, kissing him. The fact that you're funny, smart, terrible at plants, and make the best coffee in Chicago is just a bonus. I'll take it. Outside, Chicago glittered in the darkness. Somewhere, Richard and Margaret were probably celebrating their successful merger. Patricia was definitely planning a wedding whether they wanted her to or not. And tomorrow, Sloane would have to figure out how to explain to Ivy that her fairy tale romance started with a broken elevator and a publicity crisis. But for now, in this moment, with Griffin's arms around her and Pancake purring between them and a future full of real possibilities stretching ahead, everything was exactly as it should be. Hey, Griffin said softly. Hey yourself. I love you. I love you too. Sloane smiled. Even though you killed a cactus. It was a complicated cactus. Nothing is that complicated. You're that complicated, he countered. And I figured you out. Did you? Well, I'm still working on it. Might take me 40 or 50 years. Good thing we have time. Good thing, Griffin agreed. And somewhere in the penthouse, a cat meowed approvingly. Epilogue. 6 months later, Chicago Magazine ran a feature article. From Scandal to Success, the Brennan Love Story. When Sloane Mercer's elevator malfunction led to a media frenzy, no one could have predicted the outcome. The couple who started as a scandal became Chicago's favorite love story. Today, Mercer runs Catalyst Events, the city's fastest-growing event planning company, while Griffin Brennan leads the newly merged Brennan Hartman Industries to record profits. People ask if I regret how we started, Sloane says, sitting in the penthouse she shares with Griffin and their cat, Pancake. But honestly, I wouldn't change a thing. Sometimes the best things come from the most unexpected places. Griffin agrees. She called my aesthetic choices emotionally constipated in our first real conversation. I knew right then she was the one. I never said that. You heavily implied it. The wedding is planned for next spring. Patricia Brennan is handling arrangements. Richard and Margaret Hartman will attend, and Pancake will presumably judge everyone from his luxury cat bed. As for advice for other couples, be honest, Griffin says, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. And maybe avoid getting trapped in elevators with your boss, Sloane adds, laughing. Though in our case it worked out pretty well. Pretty well indeed. The end.